Tansin Norbu grew up in the ancient Himalayan kingdom of Zanskar, now part of the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. His village is so remote and high up in the mountains that it's cut off from the rest of the world for 7 months of the year. In 1981, when Tansin was 7 years old, his parents decided it was time to send him to school. But the nearest one was 5 days' walk away across a notoriously dangerous mountain pass. When he came into the Outlook studio, I asked Tansin to tell me more about the region he was born in.
Zanskar is actually meaning the Copper Valley. So it has colourful mountains. You can see green mountains and you can see red mountains and white. And because it's very high altitude, above the tree line, it's almost mountain desert and it's always sunny.
Right. So what's the village like that you come from?
My village is very, very small village. It's around 4,000 metres above the sea level. It's got only 20 houses and it's far away from the nearest road.
Was there a school nearby?
There was a school. We call it school, but it wasn't really school. It was sort of open space just under the willow tree. That was our school, and no roof, no building, nothing.
But eventually you had to travel further to your school, didn't you?
That's right. The biggest problem then was the absence of teachers. Teacher used to come for 1 month and 2 months, and then they disappear for 6, 7, 8 months. By the time teacher come, forget everything. So you end up counting 3 years, 1 to 100. So my parent was very upset. And
so what was the alternative?
So they thought the best way I should go to Manali, which is the sort of nearest place.
Nearest place, but how far away was it?
There was a 5 days walk.
5 days walk?
5 days walk on the barren landscape. There is no villages, nothing. And we have to camp. Those days we don't have any tent or anything. And there was a high mountain called Shinkula, which is 5,100 meters. And it's actually glacier, massive glaciers with lots of crevasses and all this sort of thing.
What an extraordinary journey. And who took you on this journey when you were 7 years old and you were going to school 5 days walk away?
It was one of my mother's distant relative, cousin. She used to live in Manali. So she was the one who said, if you want to send Tansin with us, we are very happy to take him to school in Manali.
Must have been an incredibly emotional parting from your parents at that age.
Yeah, I mean, I was the youngest in my family. And my mother was desperately saying, look, this is too young. He can't go. What's going to happen if he gets ill? So what's going to happen? There was lots of dangers on the way. Yeah.
What did you feel about it? Were you excited? Were you frightened?
My father was saying, this is a really nice place. It's really exciting place, interesting place. You should go, and there's lots of cars and lots of buses. You will see them.
Presumably there were no cars and buses in your village?
Absolutely, there's no road for next 5 days. So I asked my mum, what is car? Her idea of car, he said, it's something black and white, like a beetle, and people sit in it, and they go around on the road. That was sort of exciting part. So the last day when we were just leaving our village, all the villagers came there with, we call it chang, made from barley, a sort of beverage, alcoholic beverage.
An alcoholic drink?
Alcoholic drink. And katak is a white scarf, which is ceremonial when somebody depart or going away. So all villagers came to say me goodbye, and then everybody started to cry. I mean, that was the most emotional part of my life, and it was really, really sad.
Did you start to cry?
I was very, very heavy-hearted, and I simply couldn't say anything. And so somehow we say goodbye, I don't know how. And I remember walking slowly, holding my auntie's hand, and I keep looking backward again and again, and they were still standing there until half an hour, and I can still see them standing, all of them there, until they completely disappeared from our view.
What was the worst part of the journey to Manali?
So then we continue walking, and I've never seen glacier on the passes, something like this, and the crevasses, so deep. I can hear the water, and I can see the gap, and I can't see water, it's very, very deep, but I can hear the massive water channels going underneath. And I never seen ice like that, and that was quite challenging. And then another challenging was the river, crossing river. There was no bridge, and it was very difficult. We have to cross on horseback, and water level was so high, it was touching our feet. That was very, very dangerous part. Even
very deep and very fast-flowing rivers,
absolutely.
presumably.
Himalayan rivers are very, 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 very fast-flowing. They're very, very deep.
So you must have been exhausted by the time you arrived in Manali.
We were really exhausting. Yeah, the first we arrived is a place called Darcha Sumdo, and that was where is nearest road start. So I saw first time there is a road, and I was so amazed to see it, this black tarmac road. And then what I saw, a jeep coming from other side, crossing the bridge, and that was something very, very, never seen it. And then a bus came, and then we camped just next to that bus stop, and the bus stopped there, and I was looking whole evenings, like standing and looking at the bus, and my auntie was saying, "Oh no, you should sit down and eat dinner now." And I wasn't eating dinner. I was so excited.
You were so fascinated by the bus.
To see all the bus. Never seen something like this. And she said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll go in it tomorrow." So
you went in the bus?
I went in a bus next day, but my auntie thought probably I may get a travel sickness because I never travel in a coach or car or anything. So they give me a tablet, something, and I fall in sleep. So I don't remember until I arrive in Manali.
So you missed your first bus journey?
So I have no idea how I travel, absolutely, yeah. So I arrive in Manali, and what I remember is it was evening time. I wake up and somebody said, "This is electricity." And there was this twinkling light and red and flashing. And that was something very extraordinary and never seen in my life. And I was just looking at the bulb, and all the time when I arrive in house, and they were saying, no, you shouldn't look in bulb, it's damage your eyesight and all this sort of thing. But I wanted to, I never seen it.
It must have been like a kind of magical experience.
It was very magical, but at the same time, my auntie, they were worried because I'm not used to crossing road, I'm not used to the vehicles and all these sort of things.
The traffic might get you.
Absolutely,
did they have to teach you how to cross the road and how to look?
They did teach me.
And did you enjoy going to school?
I did first day. I was quite excited, and the problem I really faced was the language. Hindi was the main language, and Hindi was the medium they teach in school. And my teacher, he know only Hindi, he don't know my language, which is Zanskari. So that was the hardest because I couldn't get anything what he was trying to say. But anyway, somehow learns a little bit and try to communication with the signs, looking each other face and the children's, and they thought something very unusual in that I was the only in 40 students roughly, I think, who cannot say anything really.
Did you find that very frustrating? Did you find it very upsetting?
In the beginning, yes, some point I found it very frustrating because I couldn't do the other children are doing.
So how long was it before you thought about being able to return to your village to see your parents again? How long did you have to spend without being able to see them?
The first year was fine. I spent in school my first year.
So you were a year without any contact with your parents?
That's right. My first year.
Because there are no phone, presumably, or anything like that?
Absolutely, no phone, nothing. Even you send a letter, you arrive sometime before letter, actually. Letter reach.
The letter takes a year to get there, does it? Right,
there, yeah.
OK.
So first year I didn't go back. And then second year I went back with my auntie again. She took me.
Right, so you had to walk back the 5 days over the glacier and all the rest of it. The weather conditions were not good, were they?
That's right. That was one of the most challenging time. We start our trek from Darcha Sumdo, the nearest road. My auntie, and there was a friend of her and her husband, and then a little girl. She was 13-year-old, but I was the youngest. I was 8-year-old. They give me in charge of carrying the kitchen equipment. So I was carrying the plate, cups, and a stove and a bottle of kerosene oil. And the idea was cook our food with the dry horse dropping. And
to use that as fuel in the
absolutely,
stove.
And yak tank. The problems was the first 2 days was fine. It was good weather. And then it started to get really, really bad weather. And it was raining, and we couldn't find any dry yak tank. It's all wet, so we worked really hard whole afternoon to make dinner. All of us was just blowing fire for hour and hour and managed to produce a bowl of soup. And it was heavily raining.
Did you have any waterproof clothing or any boots on your feet?
We have nothing. I was completely soaked. I was wearing a plimsoll shoes, which is made from cloth, white color, and I saw there's a massive hole from my boat toe and it was exposed. And my auntie's friend, she produced these 2 different colour of clothing with needles. And
so she sewed a patch into your plimsolls?
Absolutely, yeah. And so I got my shoes, one is red and one is blue patches.
Right. And then there was a snowstorm, wasn't there?
That's right. Only equipment that we were carrying to keep us dry was a plastic sheet. So we put this plastic sheet above us and we just huddle up like standing position, not really sleeping. And the storm started really, really strong. And it was so heavy. And the wind was amazing, blowing, and the plastic, unbelievable noisy. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I feel so quiet. And there was no noise, nothing. And by the time we wake up, it was 1 foot snowfall. And it was snowing really, really heavy. We can't see anything. There was a massive cloud, very, very low. And we were not sure what to do. Shall we go back? Because we have to travel another 3 days back. And if we go other side, we have this high pass to cross, Shinkurla. And the adult was who really take the decision, and they said, okay, we should go forwards.
But difficult to find your way in the snow, presumably.
It was very difficult because the fresh snowfall covered all the track of previous, how we follow the route. So we have no route, first place. The second thing, the cloud was very dense and the fog was so low. So you really can't see any mountains, you can't navigate. So we keep walking towards Shinkurla, assuming we should go this way. And we were really, really tired and run out all our energies before we climbed Shinkurla. And we still couldn't find the pass. And then somebody said, oh, well, let's shelter behind this massive rock for a few seconds. And we went there and just was like, wow, that was the quietest and best place because there was no wind for 5 seconds. But we are not allowed to stay too long because it's very cold and there's danger to get freeze.
You have to keep moving,
You have to keep moving, keep moving. This is really, really tricky situation. And my auntie said, well, this is such a sad moment. We may die, but it doesn't matter. We are quite old and these children are too young to die. And I can see their face and the emotional. And that was really moving. And I thought, oh, what's going to happen? And then they said, okay, we should move on. So we keep climbing. The wind was getting stronger and stronger. We had to almost crawl because it was so strong that can't just hold the feet. And we arrived on the top of the mountains. And then luckily, because wind was so strong, it blew away the little cloud. And we can spot the prayer flag of the top of the pass, which was around 300 meters below us. Then we were so happy, so joy to see that prayer flag, and we rushed back toward the top. And we keep walking, and...
What sort of condition were you in when you arrived back at your home village?
Very, 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 very tight. So we keep walking from there until almost midnight. And midnight, we arrive in the first village of Zanskar. So we knocked somebody's door, and we went in. And at that stage, I feel like somebody put chili powder in my eyes, like the tear coming out from my eyes constantly. And I didn't know what's happened. And they say, oh, you got snow blindness.
Oh, my goodness.
And I couldn't open my eyes, and I couldn't sleep all night and couldn't eat anything. And still my village is around 5 hours away from that village. So we have to walk. And then somebody produced this piece of prayer flag. I think it's a green color. They said green is good for eye. And they put in front of my eyes like a wheel. Just I'm wearing this.
Like a veil?
Veil. And then slowly holding my auntie's hand, I have to walk to my village.
Your parents must have been absolutely delighted to see you, but very worried about you.
They were so happy. As soon as my mother saw me, and she started to cry.
Given what you'd been through, surely they would have wanted to keep you with them rather than send you back to school again.
Absolutely, but my father especially understood the importance of education, and he thought, no, it is important to give him proper education.
So how long did you stay with your family before you went back to school?
I was 1 month.
So you had to then make the trek back to Manali?
Absolutely.
Less eventfully, the return journey. How long was it, that time, before you saw your parents again?
That was the longest, actually. What happened when I arrived in school in Manali, the school holiday pattern changed. First year I got summer holiday, and then they said, no, we should give a winter holiday because winter Manali is quite cold, so the children can stay home. But it was bad for me.
Because you couldn't go back to your village during the winter, presumably. It would have been impossible.
Absolutely. It's impossible for me because Zanskar is a valley which stays closed from outer world for 7 months, roughly, in winter.
So it's snowed in, presumably?
Absolutely snowed in. There is no way I can get in. So I couldn't go my village to see my parents around 7 years.
7 years you didn't see them?
That was the longest time I haven't seen my mother. My dad came 1 or 2 year times and met me in Manali. But my mother, no, she couldn't come because she has to stay and work. And because in summer it's so short, we have to produce everything for the winter. So we have to work really hard, so my mother couldn't come.
Was that very difficult for you?
I think it was very difficult, but I think I got used to gradually. The first 1 or 2 years I found it a bit hard because I feel very difficult. Then slowly I was adapting. I was learning the language and I got new friends, new peoples and new community.
So when you were 15 years old, you were able to make the journey back with some trekkers from the UK.
That's right. It was 1989. A relative of mine said, there's a group of British trekkers. They're going to your village for trekking. And if you have a holiday, you can join them. So luckily, I have 15 days holiday. That was quite lucky to just go and come back.
Enough time to get there and come back.
It was just for a trek, absolutely, yeah. So I joined them.
And you got on well with them?
I got on quite well, but my English was very poor.
But you managed to communicate with them?
I managed to communicate.
And as I understand it, one of them eventually ended up sponsoring your education in the UK.
That's right. They took lots of photographs in my village, and there was a wedding, my brother's wedding, in my parents' house, and they thought that's fascinating. And we went back to Manali together again. And one of the gentlemen, his name was Mr. Robert Binion, and I keep in touch with him. Then I finished my schooling in Manali, and I went to Jammu for my higher study. I did my A-level there, and I did my undergraduate in biology there. And when I finished my undergraduate, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure. Probably I may go back and teach in the village." And he said, "If you want to improve your English, why don't you come London, and I'll be very happy to help you out." So Mr. Binion sponsored me to come London to study English.
And I believe you also studied tourism, ecotourism here, didn't you?
That's right. I joined London Metropolitan University and I did my MA in tourism there. So I became first Zanskari who got MA's degree from Western University.
They must be very proud back in your village.
Yes, absolutely. People who know where is England. My mother still don't know where is England.
Your mother doesn't understand?
She don't understand. She still think all the people who look like Western look, they come from same area.
And is London home to you now?
London is very much home to me now, but I still go back quite a lot. And after my university, I met my wife, Tansy Troy. She set up a charity called Kinship. So I started to do lots of projects with charities. And this year I took 3 musicians from Royal Academy of Music, and so we paired up with 1 local musician from Ladakh. And then we did project again in Leh and in 2 schools in Zanskar.
So you're taking education back to your home village.
Absolutely. So that's one of my motivation now. And even when I was here in university, I started to recruit sponsors for the children in my village and in my valley, especially the children who have no parents and who come from very poor background. We got now 6 students we have been helping from last 5-6 years, and they were doing really well. One girl is doing medicine, and one boy, he came top in his school last year, and I was receiving email recently saying like, I'm so happy that you are helping me. I wish I will follow your footsteps one day. And that gave me really, really encouragement.
It must be a wonderful feeling.
Wonderful feelings, yes.
And do those children from your village still have to make that walk when they want to go to school, or is there another way?
Children still do make this walk. In 2011, I got a Neville Shellman Challenge Prize from Royal Geographical Society. So one of the idea was to go back and find out what's happening. Is still the practice through each other is still happening, like myself. We met a group of people from Lingshed Valley, and they were taking their children to Leh. And when I came back here, I hear this news. This group of people, they were going back to their village, and just day before their village, they were camping. And within this group, there's 5-6 people. They said, "We want to go to our village." They caught up in avalanche. They all die. in small village, 6 people is big.
One of the things that strikes me about the story that you told me is the appreciation that people have of the power of education. Because that's really what people are taking these risks for, isn't it? They're saying, my children could have a better life if we take these risks, if they take that trek. It's an extraordinary thing.
Absolutely. No, education is always inspired in my valleys, and even the parents have very little money, or they want to give their best to their children, and they're happy to take any risk for their children. So education is really, really important. Yeah,
and you are living proof of the power
I've been
of
very,
that, aren't
yes.
you? Your story is the absolute epitome of the power of that education and the life-changing power of that.
Absolutely. I've been very, very, very lucky. I consider myself very fortunate that I got all this opportunity to study. I hope I can continue what I'm doing and to help the people of Zanskar Valley. I do believe in a good education, not just build up the bank balance, but more than that, education to live.
Tanzin Norbu from Zanskar in the Himalayas.
What kind of affair?
Love affair.
Love affair?